It's time for the Sin Bin Podcast, your home for all the latest news, analysis, and discussion around the Chicago Blackhawks and Bloomington Bison.
Let's drop the puck and get started.
Welcome back to the Sin Bin Podcast. I'm Dylan Skeen, joined by Michael Eganhouse. We are very excited for you to join us for another episode. Today we have a lot to talk about, especially one trade that you know that this guy is very excited about.
You know who we're going to talk about.
Two Bison games to recap as well, and another edition of my classic Prospect Corner. So, with all that and more ahead, let's start with the Bison. And Mike, it was not a great weekend for the Bison, was it?
No, and I mean, we're going to get into it later. We talk about the next man mentality, and it's so important. And we're going to keep preaching it because it is.
Yep.
But they've lost a lot of guys. And it gets to a point where it's just so difficult that it's going to really, you got to, either you're going to overcome it or you're not. And we're slowly finding that out, that it's affecting them more than usual. Or more than they would want, I would say.
We'll get to that. Let's recap the games first. I'm saying that first one, 3-1 loss with the only goal going to Danny Kadek, the big man. What did you think about that game, Mike?
They just need to get something going, and I think you saw it in both games. I mean, that second game even, like, they were in it for a little bit, and then they're making these plays that I'm just like, guys, you're in these games, but you just make it. All it takes is one or two mistakes, and teams will run away with it. This is not, this is the ECHL.
Yeah.
Like we talked about last week, these teams are good.
Yep.
So if you give them any leeway, they're going to take it and run, and I think that's something that we saw in these games, that, I mean, you just can't give them any, leadway or room to run away with these games, and I think especially when you only score one goal. I mean, you're asking a lot from your goaltender. Granted, Yaniv Peretz is great. He's played great all year for us, but if you're only scoring one goal in a game and you're asking him to stop, 30 to 40 shots a game, you're just not going to win like that. And unfortunately, I mean, they showed up in the next game, but you can't expect to win only scoring one goal.
Well, I'm saying with Yaniv Peretz, he was at a .935 save percentage. Like, as much as I love Yaniv Peretz, that is an absolutely insane number. So it was kind of destined to come down eventually. Like, he was gonna have one bad game. Like, it was gonna. I mean, I was kind of expecting it initially, but you're allowed to. You're allowed to have your goaltender have one or two bad games. Like, it happens during the season, but you need to be able to make up that slack. And right now, the Bison have not been able to do that.
Yeah.
Unless Yaniv Peretz plays out of his mind, they're not winning games because their offense just cannot get stuff going when they lose the pieces. And all right, let's talk about that, specifically the biggest losses. We'll talk about. I mean, can I just talk to Hartford? Can we have Carter Berger for longer than like 2 hours? I feel like you dangle him like the State Farm guy, like that dangles the keys, sorry. But it's like, oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that. I'm like, dude, just give me Carter Berger. He just keeps taking him up and sending him down and taking him up and sending him down. I'm like,
it's so hard. It's so hard.
And here's the thing. We were talking about this before the podcast. Hartford is not even in a playoff spot right now. Like, they are, I mean, maybe fighting for one with their bottom division, like maybe, but like, I mean, give me like a Blake McLaughlin or a Carter Berger, maybe even a Ryan Seedham, but that could be asking for a lot.
It's so hard. I saw someone on their Facebook fan page, they posted something and that they said, like, basically, like, I shouldn't have got too attached to these players, and I just had to laugh at that because it's so hard to watch these guys, go up and down, and I'm sure it's a whirlwind for them. I can't even imagine what their lifestyle is like, if getting called up, getting called down, whatever. But, I mean, as fans, like, it stinks because I think this team could be, in they're not in a bad spot, but I think that they would be playing a little bit better if they had all their guys. But then you think about it and you're like, how can we be mad at them?
Yeah,
right? Like
they're in the AHL.
They're playing so good, and that's why they leave us, right? They play good and they show their skills, and Hartford likes them. And I just don't know how to feel sometimes though, because like you said, if we could get those guys back, I'm sure.
Right. I mean, it is.
I'm
greedy.
sure it would make us better, but at the same time,
it's greedy to want that from those guys because they're making. I mean, they're playing better in the AHL. Like it's good for them. I'm glad that they're.
It's just bad
killing
timing.
it in the AHL. Yeah, it's just like
horrible timing for us.
Like I'm happy for Berger getting in some A time. Same with Ryan Seedham, Eddie. Oh, with the
gotta
goals.
love Eddie.
Love Eddie. Let's give a little Eddie update. So far, he's played 2 games with the San Diego Gulls. No points registered yet, but it's Eddie, so it's only a matter of time, I'm sure.
We love you, Eddie, if you're listening to this.
Absolutely. No, keep killing it out there. Selfishly, I want you back on my top line, but hey, what's best for you? So keep killing it.
I want to get your opinion on this real quick before I forget this.
Yes.
But in the 2 games that they played against the Railers, or the Wrench Monkeys as they called themselves for those 2 games.
The Wrench Monkeys.
What did you think about the decision to have Perretz play both of them? He got pulled in that second game, but I only asked that because he got pulled in that second game. Do you think that is a good move? Or do you think he can handle that? I mean, obviously it's a small sample size, but what did you think of that?
I do. My faith is still in Perretz. He's allowed to have a bad game there or two. Like it happens. Like I'm not worried. Like personally, I'm worried because the defense in front of him has gotten so much worse. No offense to those guys who have popped in on defense, but like losing Berger, losing Seedham, losing Montgomery. I mean, you're losing like a solid amount of your entire. I mean, we lost Case McCarthy earlier in the year. Like you have basically lost. Oh, Zach Hoffman, obviously. Like you've basically lost an entire starting defense this year. The only person that was like on our really good starting defense that's still here, because remember Ryan Seedham and like Thomas Stewart and Staudiker were like the bottom pair. So like the only one that's really there is Jake Murray. And then maybe like Thomas Stewart and Matt Staudiker as like bottom pair guys. Like it's like you've lost basically an entire starting defense. So
that's great for us.
Yeah, no, lovely. But oh well, it happens. I don't know. It's just you're talking about like it's what's best for them, and I'm happy for them. It's just so hard for this team to win right now with the people. I mean, they called people up from the Rivermen. Like it's
Daddy Janov.
Yeah, Dadajanov, I don't know.
There's only so much you can do, I feel like.
Yeah, well, I mean,
like
I think they've been making good trades. I still like them bringing in. We can talk about our new player we just traded for, actually. What was his name again? Lou Felix
Denis. I think that's how you say it.
I think that's it. Lou Felix Denis, yeah. Which, the thing crazy about him, only 21.
Really? I didn't even catch that. Only 21.
Yep.
Wow.
Only 21.
Got a young buck.
Oh, yeah. And already scored those 6 goals, 10 assists for 16 points in 50 games. Not insane, but that's a solid team in the Royals. Not great, but it's all right. And then that's solid, like, third-line minutes. As a 21-year-old, that's pretty impressive. So he's only going to get better. And I mean, you got him for nothing. So I think that was pretty good. I mean, you definitely kind of owe the...
What did we get him for, Bison fans? Any guesses?
Yeah, because it never happens in a Bison trade.
Future consideration.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we definitely owe that team something in the future. But who knows? I think he'll be pretty solid for us. I hope so, at least. But yeah, again, I mean, he was near a point per game in the Q last year. So, and he was 20 years old. So that's pretty good. He's only going to get better. Again, 16. I think, honestly, now that I'm looking at it, really, he's only 21. Honestly, 16 points in 50 games. I'm saying like by next year he could be like a second line guy.
Yeah, he could be a good piece for sure.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting watching.
Well, you know me, I'm a big prospect guy, so I like seeing the development.
It's interesting watching the moves though. Like we talk about all this movement and losing guys, and I just think it's interesting to watch head coach and GM Philip Barsky. Just his kind of, I mean, we can't go inside his mind, but we can make assumptions or kind of guess what he's thinking based on these moves. But I don't know. I think it's interesting to watch how he manages it, and especially in this league with people going up and down. But I think we've been preaching it ever since we've started this podcast. But the depth is so important, and we thought it was getting tested like, right when we started this podcast. Well, it was not because holy cow, is it getting tested right now?
Yeah, which I mean, I guess that's a good thing is that you have that depth. So I definitely think like we still have a solid forward core. It's not amazing, but like it can get the job done. It's a next man up, like it could work. But the problem is we were a team that we could make it work offensively the whole time until we got we got Kadek and Matsushima and Lee all on the line. That was pretty offensively powerful. But I'm saying like other than like the big guys, we were always just depth. And the defense was our strength. So when you lose an entire starting six defense, it goes from your greatest strength to, okay, like...
Big red flag. Which is partially why Yaniv Perez struggled in a game. His defense in front of him has changed a ton during this year. So... I think that's another thing that saved us, though. Even though Perez had the bad game, and like you said, he's allowed to, defense was a huge strength of ours, but also our goaltending.
Yeah,
and I think that's been our second strength all year long. And
absolutely,
I think
with
if we didn't have the depth at goaltending that we've had, like you said, Sinclair, Perez, Olas, who we faced against the Railers, he didn't have what he wanted in Bloomington, but ever since he went over to Worcester, he's been phenomenal for them. That's not something to overlook because even though we've lost a bunch of defense, our goaltending has kept us in the game every single time we've played. So shout out to those guys because that's not a job that I would want.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's a little bit different, but I just talked to so many of my goalies when I was playing defense in front of them, and apologies to any goalie I've played defense in front of, especially for roller hockey because. I was not necessarily the greatest my first year. So
I would not want to just be a goalie in general. Like the pressure that those guys face is just insane. And then you talk about like I'm blanking on the team, but the game that Perez, I think it was Savannah, stopped like 50 something shots. Mm-hmm. I don't want 50 vulcanized rubber pucks coming at me any day of the week.
Well, there was more that went at you. That was just what actually hit your pads.
Well, that's true. So
that's how many shots you got hit with. I'm like, I don't want to get hit by 57 rubber discs.
I'm already in a wheelchair. I don't need any more injuries, please. Okay, no. All right. Rant done, but no, I don't want to be goalie.
Gotcha. Well, luckily none of us have to play goalie anytime soon. But because Perez has got it locked down. Let's talk about the standings because this is what's really going to hurt the Bison here. So after this past weekend, you're now 23, 26, and 5 essentially because I'm pretty sure overtime losses and shootout losses count for the same. So just 5, I'll say. 3 overtime losses, 2 shootout losses. And that's for 51 points. You are now tied with not only the Indy Fuel, who we still have that game that was rescheduled now. So we still have a really important game against them, along with another game later in March against them. So we have 2 games against the Fuel. But now you are also tied with the Cyclones, who have definitely made a big comeback after starting the year pretty bad. They have pushed forward and are now tied with us in points for 51. And Kalamazoo is only 1 point below us, and they also have a game in hand. So Cincinnati has, we have 1 game in hand on Cincinnati, but the Fuel and the Wings both have a game in hand on us. So, I mean, it's literally if this next game, this Wednesday game, if you lose this Wednesday game, which, by the way, you should not lose this Wednesday game. No. There's going to be thousands of kids.
If you haven't gotten your tickets for that game, go get them because, that game is going to be insane.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, the Education Day game, it's 10:30, and once this podcast is uploaded, it'll be tomorrow at 10:30, and buddy, it's going to be pretty good. I'm excited for that.
If you've never experienced, just quick story time here. I went to an Illinois State game, and I think I may have said this on the last episode. But if you've never experienced like thousands of kids just like screaming their heads off like nutcases, it's awesome.
We'll try when they score a goal.
And then it's also the worst thing in the world at the same time. No offense to little kids, but the energy is going to be off the roof. So go get your tickets and go, because not only is it going to be great atmosphere, but the Bison need your help.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it's going to be ruckus in there. I'm excited, especially, Abe's got to get those kids riled up. Like that mascot.
He scares me, dude.
Abe?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Okay, dude. I was sitting in ADA seating, and this dude was like climbing up on chairs, banging drum. I thought he was gonna like fall over the edge of the like glass, that sits in front of you.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, sit down or you're gonna fall over and fall on top of the people below you. I don't know, man. That's another. Speaking of jobs I wouldn't want, that's not no
mascot. You wouldn't want that.
Don't sign me up for that either.
No.
But yeah, he kind of scares me sometimes.
Really?
He probably needs to think about his life decisions sometimes because he might end up hurting himself. But
really,
that's for another day.
I don't know. I think he's got it. I've seen it at a couple of games. I think he's got it. I don't know.
I don't know. Listen. I like him, but again, life decisions. Does he want to live or does he want to die? Sometimes I question it. But hey, he's
getting the fans.
He gets them going.
Done. That's it. That's what he's doing.
He gets it done. He gets it done for sure.
There you go. All right. Well, yeah, though, definitely. I mean, standings right now. I mean, if you look at the standings, the Cyclones are mainly here on loser points. No offense to the Cyclones, but that's what they're here on. They have 4 more. They have 9 overtime losses. They have 0 shootout losses, so they've never even made it to the shootout. Or at least if they have, they've won. But 9 overtime losses. So we actually have 2 more wins than them right now. But they are currently tied with us on loser points. So that, I mean, I guess that's if you face them, they're an easier team to beat. But I don't know what to say. Indy's still the big one here. They are only 1 win behind us. So we had a good weekend against them, but you're going to need to continue to beat them.
Yeah, I think.
Same with the Wings. The Wings are 6-2-2 in their last 10. So, I know you lost to the Wings. It was like, oh, hey, you just ended up losing to the Wings earlier in the season. Now it's like you cannot lose to the Wings.
Yeah, I think it's. I think we focused. I think we talked so much about that Indy series.
Yeah,
and
it was important.
It was very important. It was very important.
But we ended up doing.
But we forgot about all the teams below us.
That was the thing. We hyped that Indy series up so much, and we did amazing in that Indy series. But then we didn't do good in any of the other games surrounding the Indy series. So now we're in a hole where now we're basically on level playing field with everybody else in the division and the lowest, because we are 18 points below the Comets right now. The Comets, Heartlanders, and Walleye are all pretty darn good teams, all right? So, you're not getting the 3rd seed. If you're making the playoffs, it's this mad scramble for this 4th wild card spot. And that means for the rest of this year, you have to beat those in-division teams.
I like our chances, though, because we hyped up the Indy series, all right, because it was very important. And those boys, they showed up and showed out in that Indy series.
They did.
So I like our chances because I think that these boys know when it counts and they need to show up, they're going to do it. because I think they proved that against Indy, and it's only going to get more pressure from here. I understand that, but I just like our chances. I think eventually we're gonna. You might disagree. We were talking about this before the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna squeak in the playoffs.
I don't know.
I think we do.
I think it's it's the end. This is make or break. I think if you can get just a few guys back, not a ton. We don't need the whole cavalry, especially now with people like Denis that we just got. Like, you're getting reinforcements and you have good enough forwards. I'm just saying, if you could get a couple of those guys back, like you get, I don't know, like you get Eddie back, and you get Berger back, and you get like Montgomery back. How about that? Like, just those 3 guys, I think would make a massive difference. Oh, and Budgel. How about that? Just Budgel, our second line center. It's 4 guys that would entirely change the outlook of this team right now. So it's hard to say because, again, we talked about it earlier. We're very happy for all of these guys making it in the AHL. Like, that's what's best for them. So we're happy that they're there. But from a team perspective right now,
it's rough.
So if you could just get a few of those guys back, if like Hartford falls out of a playoff spot and they send some of those guys down, I think we could absolutely do something in the playoffs. But it's hard to, like you said it earlier, it's hard to root for that, kind of.
It's very hard. But here's another question for you, because we talk about guys going up and down, playoff spots and everything like that. As a fan, we say, oh, okay, if Hartford doesn't make the playoffs, give us our guys back. Do you think that actually matters in the minds of these GMs? Like, do you think, let's say you're the GM of Hartford, whoever that is, and you're like, all right, we're not going to make the playoffs. Do you send your guys that you recalled from Bloomington back down to give Bloomington the best chance at the playoffs? Or do you keep your guys at the AHL level?
Depends on if there's even like a sliver of a hope that you can do it. Because if you're the AHL GM, your job is to make your team as good as possible.
Right.
So while they definitely, it plays a role, I'm sure. They think about it. They don't want to like mess up their farm team, but also it's their farm team. Think about it from an NHL perspective. If you're in the NHL and you're like even have a sliver of making the playoffs, you're not going to send your guys down to the AHL.
Yeah.
If you even have a sliver of a chance to make the playoffs, they're going to be there. Until they are like almost or entirely eliminated from the playoffs, then I would see like people being sent down that were playing there most of the year just to go back to Bloomington. If
so
they wasn't
you
like
could see them sending
player
those guys down.
Perspective. What's up?
So you could see if they let's say they get mathematically eliminated, you could see the guys that they called up being sent back down to Bloomington.
I could. I think if there's like barely any reason at that point, like once you're eliminated, it plays a small role. I don't think it plays a big role, but I think it's like something that's just in the back of their mind. They're like, oh, we might as well have our affiliate be pretty good.
Yeah.
And so they would send down people. Once they're like out of the playoff race, then it's like, okay, why would we even try? Like right. We're not gonna make the playoffs at this point. Our best players are still here. Just send these guys down. Better to, go back to the team that they were playing in for a good amount of the year.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
But we'll have to see. I think that's about it for the Bison, I'd say, because we have a lot to talk about on our second half. By the way, we'll have a quick interruption here. Well, before we go from the Bison to the Blackhawks part, but on our next episode, we will actually be separating.
Oh yeah, okay, yep.
These two sections. So we will have the Sin Bin podcast will remain, and we will continue to talk our stuff, but that will mainly be for Bison. We will have a side show we will upload at the same time that is talking about the Blackhawks. And other stuff like ISU Roller, if they do something like they're going to a tournament this weekend, something like that, or not this weekend, during spring break, but stuff like that will all go in our side episode, yet to be named at this point. But
yeah, I don't know what we're gonna call that, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
and we'll put all those details out next week. But
if you got any good ideas, drop them in the comments. Maybe
the Sin Bin podcast, the Sin Bin podcast will be all Bison.
Absolutely.
For sure.
The Sin Bin podcast will remain. We're also getting a little graphic update soon as well.
Yes, we are. I haven't mentioned anything about that, but we are very close. Probably within the next couple of weeks. Hopefully sooner. But the Sin Bin podcast will be getting...
We were really close to done. Especially our graphic. I think it looks really good.
New logo coming.
I'm excited for you guys to see it. But yeah, this should be good. We'll continue the Sin Bin podcast, but mainly for Bison stuff. And then we will have our side podcast talking about everything else. And speaking of everything else, the main focus will still be the Blackhawks. And the Blackhawks had 3 games since we last talked. They lost to Utah 1-2 with a certain Seth Jones being the only goal scorer there. I don't know if that's going to come in.
Do not listen to anything he says about Seth Jones, people.
In the future. But yeah, maybe that could come up in the future. But I'm pretty sure that was the game. Let me just say Seth Jones whole year comments, because I'm pretty sure it was after that Utah game that he made that comment about...
Oh, he did. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure...
We're the same team we are that we said in the beginning of the year.
That was after the Utah game. So it was crazy that was only a week ago. That does not feel like only a week ago that he spoke out against that. But that was like, he called out the team. And
didn't he say that? Something like, we're the same team now that we were in the beginning of the year?
Well, here's one thing that's funny.
That's crazy.
You weren't here for part of the year, all right? You weren't here. So, yeah, it did kind of change because you weren't here. And you know what the craziest part was? We were better. But you know what? I'm not gonna get into it right now. We'll talk about the Seth Jones trade in a second.
That's crazy.
We'll talk about the Seth Jones trade in a second. But first, we'll talk about, that loss to Utah. Seth Jones makes the comments about how, hey, he doesn't like we haven't moved. We haven't moved. We're the same team we were at the beginning of the year. Then we go against Vegas, and it's a barn burner. And Seth pretty sure he had an own goal that game. Yeah, he did. He had a goal go off of him into the net. And I just remember...
Was it intentional?
No, I don't think so. But 5-7 loss, and that was a pretty big one because, I don't know, it's brutal. It was Peter in net, I'm pretty sure, for the beginning, and then he got yanked.
Yeah.
Peter listen, I like you, Peter, but man, you have been brutal lately. His last couple games have not been good, and I'm saying he's probably gonna get shipped out or at least put on waivers. He's currently the 3rd goalie out. Well, again, we'll talk that, but when we get to the Seth Jones trade,
there's gonna be some moves like that.
But I want to talk about the 3 games first. 5-7 loss. So then after the trade happens, they won 6-3 over the Ducks.
Shocker.
And it was actually a really fun game. I want to pull up those stats from that game.
By the way, I know we lost that Vegas game, but
that was a good game.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Game. It was a great game.
5-7.
And we showed some fight in that game.
We did.
That was good to see because it gets very easy to just lay down and be like, all right, we stink. But we didn't do that in that game. So I was proud of them for that because, I mean, when you let in 7 goals, I don't care if you were behind by 2 or 1 at that point. I don't give a dang. You could just easily lay down. But
you know what the most fun thing is? We've had all of this production, and Bedard's been on a slump. Bedard hasn't been producing, and we're still putting the puck in the net with other people. Nazar had a 2-assist night in the Vegas game. So Colton Dock had a goal in that game. Ethan Del Mastro.
Shout out to Colton Dock. Also, shout out to Kirby because that sucks for him.
Oh my gosh, getting injured again.
Yeah, that sucks.
I feel for him. Former Hawk. I have an autographed picture from Kirby Dock actually, and you feel for the guy. It's just brutal. Ivan Barbashev. I forgot. Ivan Barbashev that game. 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points against the Hawks.
Ooh,
brother of Maxim Barbashev.
Yes, sir.
So
Barbashev's showing up and showing out.
Yep. But yeah,
just don't do it against the Hawks again, though.
But
Please.
that 6-3 game, who else but Ryan Donato? Honestly, we'll talk about him more because the trade deadline's about to happen in the next couple days. But Ryan Donato, if he continues at this rate, I mean, it's crazy to say, but he might fetch a first-round pick. Like,
whoa.
Like, you trade... Okay, Gustav Nyquist, because we were waiting to see... This is big, because I wanted to talk about this, but we'll get into the Seth Jones market, too, but... Because this goes with it. But the trade market this year is a seller's market. And that I was talking about this a couple episodes ago, and I'm going to say it's huge to know because if it's going to be a buyer's market or if it's going to be a seller's market. Like last year, it was a buyer's market. We didn't really offload that many contracts because we couldn't get much for them. You remember why everyone was so mad about Kane? That was the same thing. It was an extreme buyer's market the year that Kane got traded to the Rangers. So we barely got anything back, but that was a really big buyer's market. People don't understand the fluctuation of it depends on what's happening with like the cap and everything like that. Like the cap's going to go up. So it is a massive buyer's market right now because people think they can re-sign.
Didn't the cap like go up like it went up like an insane amount?
It's going to go up a lot over the next couple of years. It only went up a couple million this past year, but like it's going to go up a lot in the next couple of years. So people are much more willing to take on contracts.
Yeah.
So it's a buyer's market right now. I mean, Gustav Nyquist, I'm going to pull up his stats because it's kind of crazy. Gustav Nyquist fetched a second-round pick.
Bro.
I mean, he went to Four Nations, but, like, he's 35 years old. And he
fetched his second round?
And he's 21 points in 57 games. And he's 35. He's a negative 20 plus minus. Only has 9 goals in those 21 points.
How in that?
57 games.
Who cooked up that deal? Oh my goodness.
I'm telling you, that was Minnesota that traded for him.
That GM is
it's not a bad GM. It's just the market right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Whoever got him was
exactly
the
what
GOAT.
we're talking about with Seth Jones as well, which is the reason why I think Seth Jones got so much because it just seems like it's a seller's market this year. It really does.
I was shocked what we got.
And now we will finally get to it. Yes, the Seth Jones trade. He is gone.
See you later, boy.
He is off of the Blackhawks. I hate to do this, but like personally, listen, I know you definitely didn't like Seth Jones. You never made that. You made nothing else as abundantly clear as clear as you made that you hated Seth Jones. I got that.
I hope you enjoy Florida, buddy.
But I didn't dislike him that much, but there was just certain things that like I did not like about Seth Jones. Like there was certain things, and the big thing is part of it's not his fault. I mean, it wasn't his fault that he was traded in one of the worst deals ever for the Hawks. I mean, it looks better now because Adam Boquist didn't really work out in Columbus, and
I was so mad at that because I thought Adam Boquist was gonna be.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that was a kind of.
The trade was
that,
awful. The contract was awful, but to be able to,
if Boquist worked out, that would have sucked.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I mean that trade was still terrible, especially for the timing. Like you were entering a rebuild, and then you traded of 2 first-round picks and a promising young player for a middle-aged defenseman, like
who makes way too much money.
Correct.
Way too much money.
I mean, listen, I didn't dislike Seth Jones, but yes, he made way too much money, and also, it's just like his propensity to put the puck in his own net. Like, I mean, like he would get beat a lot, especially I remember that first year he was with the Hawks. He gave away the puck so much. You remember that one time that Patrick Kane screamed at Seth Jones because it was the power play and Seth Jones was behind the blue line?
Yeah.
And he goes, "Where the are you going?" I remember that.
You know who he reminds me of as you said that? There's a clip, and I'm sure you've seen it, of I think it was Michael Roosevelt, and he just like, I don't know what happened, but he like just gave the puck up. You remember that? He like friggin' broke his ankle.
Oh yeah.
On like nothing.
I remember that.
And I'm like,
the non-contact just gives up the puck.
How did you make the NHL, dude? That's what that reminds me.
He was a good defenseman too.
That's what Seth Jones reminds me of. That's
Roosevelt?
That specific clip. of him just like breaking his ankle. I'm like, you suck. I mean, Roosevelt was not like that was his one blunder. I'll give him that. But like Seth Jones, no.
Yes, he had a lot of times where he would go off his shin. I mean, like, you know who the other guy that gets self goals a lot? Tony DeAngelo. All right. Is he a number one defenseman? No. He has offense like Seth Jones, but he's not a number one defenseman. And that's the biggest thing, which is also why I honestly think this is going to be really good for Florida. I think Florida is going to do really well with him because the biggest thing, their number one defenseman is Gustav Forsling, who, yes, former Hawk, but he's really good defensively. So you put that with Jones and you just let him be that big offensive defenseman.
Yeah.
Could work.
You got to back up.
They need a power play quarterback too. That was the biggest thing this year that they really needed because Aaron Ekblad hasn't been doing like great. Well, hasn't really been that guy. All right. They had Braden Montour when they won the cup, and then he went to Seattle for a lot of money. So you needed that offensive guy. Seth Jones can be that power play quarterback. He's not the best power play quarterback, but he will definitely do the job better than Adam Boquist because just talking about it, Adam Boquist like put on waivers by the Panthers because they didn't like what he was doing. Like that's what because it kind of seemed like that was their plan. They moved on from Montour and they're like, all right, we're gonna do a similar thing with Boquist. He has really good underlying offensive metrics, and he just did not work out.
And all you need is somebody that will, like, you don't have to be great at it. You just have to be able to do the job.
But that's what I'm saying. Seth Jones, as much as I hate to say it, he's pretty darn good at quarterbacking a power play. He can do it.
Yeah.
He can walk the line. He can be that big presence on the back end during a power play. And I think for the Panthers, that was a thing they desperately needed. They have their defensive shutdown defenseman. They don't really have that top-tier offensive defenseman right now. Because Aaron Ekblad's two-way, but he's not really... He's kind of mad. His future in Florida is kind of in jeopardy. So honestly, for only $7 million for Florida, if I'm a Florida fan, I'm not that mad. I'm mad. I'm not mad at the asset I'm getting. I'm mad at what I'm giving up. Which in a seller's market, we got a first round pick in 2026. If that pick isn't there, they will give us their 2027 pick, and goalie Spencer Knight. And ooh, buddy, do I want to talk about Spencer Knight?
I did not see that coming, to be honest. Like, you talk about the buyers and sellers market, like, there was no way that, like, if I was a GM, I was like, no, you're not getting a first-round pick and our young goalie for Seth Jones, nuh-uh. And I saw that pop up, and I was like, oh, my God.
It was
Spencer Knight, Drew Commesso, Arvid Soderblom, first-round pick. Oh, my goodness.
It was... Okay. I was on a date with my girlfriend at the time, going fantastic. And I'm like...
That date definitely got interrupted, I'll tell you that right now.
Well, we were having a great time, and for the first time at the night, I checked my phone, and I saw the Seth Jones trade. But, you know, we respect each other, so we're not on our phones the whole time.
Right.
So I put it down, I'm like, I will not pay attention to this because we are on a date night and I respect you, all right?
Good man, good man.
But, man, it was hard to not look at Hockey Update. I went to the bathroom for, like, a little bit and I just, like, I have to, like look at what happened. Like, what's
classic move right there.
What's, like, what did we get in return? What can we get? Yeah. And then I was like, okay, we're good. And went back. It was just...
You texted me. Actually,
I texted you.
I'm gonna have a confession here. You texted me, like Seth Jones, see you later or something. You broke the news to me. I hadn't seen that yet.
That text was from the bathroom.
When you texted me, I immediately jumped on Instagram and I saw it and I did a happy dance. Oh my Lord! But yeah, you were actually the one that broke the news to me because I didn't see that.
Well, yeah, that news was broken from Hacienda Leon's bathroom.
Shout out to Hacienda Leon.
But no, it was just crazy. That the biggest piece in that I just mentioned, but Spencer Knight, the first round pick's great, But man, am I excited for Spencer Knight.
What happens with the rest of our goalies? Okay, well,
We'll
I'm
talk
going to
about
save
that
myself.
in a second.
I'm going to save myself. My
Talk
bad.
about it in a second. Because
My bad.
one of them we're going to talk about in the prospect corner, so we'll get to him later.
Yep.
But we'll talk with Knight. Only 23. Yes, he does turn 24 in about a month and a half. But for goalies, that's still pretty darn young.
When's his birthday?
April 19th.
No way.
Yeah.
That's my birthday.
Really?
I'm not even kidding you. Shout out Spencer Knight.
What year?
2001.
You're born on the same day.
Let's go, Spencer Knight. Love you, buddy.
April 19th, 2001.
All right. Good to know. Good to know.
There you go.
That was totally sidetracked.
You share birthdays with Spencer Knight. That's pretty darn cool. I share a birthday, or not the same birthday, obviously, but I share a birthday with Andrew Shaw. We were both born on July 20th.
Yeah, head butter.
Because I remember, I still think about this nicely, but I remember on my 20th birthday, I saw that they posted a happy birthday Shawzy thing, and I was like, oh, I had no idea that we had the same birthday, and I just commented that. And I was at work, and I went back and checked my phone, and Andrew Shaw commented on my comment and said, oh, happy birthday, dude.
There you go.
Look
at that. All right, you know what?
Thank you.
I'm jumping on.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'm finding Spencer Knight on
Instagram. You're gonna hit him up and say, hey, we have the same birthday.
Yep. Shout out Spencer Knight.
Well, no, absolutely. 6'3" goaltender, only 23, about to be 24. But listen to his stats, because, oh man, he played for the World Juniors twice. His stats at the World Juniors, his first year World Juniors under 20, .913 save percentage. Okay, pretty solid. Second year, 6 games, 1.63 goals against average, and a .94 save percentage.
Ooh. Yikes.
Only lost 1 game at the World Juniors.
That's yeah.
With 3 shutouts, by the way. With 3
I'm
shutouts.
not. If I'm an opposing team, that is the last thing I want to see.
Then with his first year in the Florida Panthers, had a .908 save percentage in 32 games.
That is very solid.
And in his 11 games in the AHL, a .905. That's all right.
Respectable.
Florida Panthers the next year, yes, it was lower. It was 21 games and only a .901 save percentage. His 2 games in the AHL, he had a .918 save percentage. But that was also the year he went into the substance abuse program. And that was just... He was dealing with his own stuff. Exactly. It happens. Like great for him for acknowledging
he got through it.
And he got through it. Exactly.
Shout out to him for that.
Well, he got through it and then went on a with them with the playoff run. I don't think actually he was cleared before that playoff run that year, but that wasn't when they won the playoffs. The next year, he pretty much only played in the AHL. Had a .905 save percentage in 45 games, so still very good, and then a .925 save percentage in the playoffs in 2 games. So 1-1, lost 1. And then in the NHL this year, played 23 games, 2.4 goals against average, and a .907 save percentage. As a 23-year-old, went 12-8-1. So,
that's Hawks fans. That's good.
Yeah,
that is good.
His years at Boston College, he had a .932 his last year at Boston College. Like, he's a really darn good goaltender.
That's crazy to think about.
And I especially want to talk about him with Comesso, but I'll get to him later. But he's been remarkably consistent. I mean, you heard those stats. He has not once put up a sub-9 save percentage. Not once.
That is
in the NHL or
insane.
AHL. His lowest was when he had those 21 games before he went into the program. He still had a .901. Never had below a 9. The last time, literally looking at his elite prospect page, he only has one singular either tournament or team he was on that he had a sub-9 save percentage, and that was in 17-18, so the year before he was drafted, and it was at the USA U17s. Which, by the way, that same year he played in the U17s, he played in the U18s, and had over a 900 save percentage.
People do not realize, I don't think people realize it, like, to save 90% of the shots that you face and keep those numbers for that long.
Consistency.
That is utterly ridiculous.
With a position that the whole thing, it borders on, like, it's really hard to find a really good goaltender. And even the really good goaltenders rise and fall, and some are good and some are bad. The only ones that have really like dominated are like Vasilevsky and Hellebuck, or like Shesterkin and maybe Sorokin. Like, you have those main guys, but other than that, people fluctuate. Like Jacob Markstrom has been really good this year. I remember the year he was with Calgary, and I went to one of the games where the Hawks absolutely blew the doors off of Calgary because Markstrom couldn't make a save. And he's a great goaltender again this year. It really fluctuates in that position. So to have a goaltender who is this consistent at the position, even if he's not putting up a 920, being that consistent in itself is amazing.
Oh, and also, by the way, with being that consistent, while also taking most of the blame for every single loss, if you're a casual hockey fan,
yeah,
goalies just don't get enough credit because they'll be that consistent, and they will still get talked about if they lose because, oh, losing and winning is a goalie stat. No, it's not. It's a freaking team stat. And it's ridiculous, but
like I get it. Like I get why we got so much for that. I mean, $2.5 million for 6 years retained is not nothing. Like let's put that into the frame here. That is not nothing, and we did retain that amount to make Seth Jones' contract reasonable. But
I don't care, though.
I think it was worth it. Absolutely,
it was definitely.
And I saw some Florida fans saying that like, oh, he wasn't like that good. Like he's like they're like, I don't know if he's going to be.
Spencer Knight was not that good.
Yeah, they're saying I don't know if he's going to be a number one. It's like he's good, but I don't know if he's going to be a number one.
They're just trying to make themselves feel better about the trade.
That's what I think too. Come on, because I'm looking at it right now. He never has those like 920 save percentages in like the regular season for AHL or NHL. He has 2 playoffs that he's ever been in. Right, one was in the NHL and one was in the AHL. In the NHL, his 2 playoff games, a 933 save percentage.
Florida, don't give us that. That's such
It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
Don't
Spencer
do that.
Knight, he's our number one. He's our future number one. That is an insane piece to give.
Kyle Davidson just fleeced you guys.
Exactly. That plus a first round pick. I love to see it. And this is what I'm going to be honest. I'm tired of the KD hate. I'm tired of it. I've been telling a couple of my friends this.
You wouldn't have wanted to talk to me before we started this podcast because I'm slowly becoming a fan of him, but I didn't like him before the podcast started.
Oh man. Okay. Let me just look at the moves Kyle Davidson's made because people don't actually know like what he's done. So let me see. I think
it's just because they haven't seen it come to fruition yet.
I just need to find the all the transactions he's done because there's a ton of moves that he's done that are awesome. Okay, here we go. I found the page. So, yeah, just remember he what was it picking up? He didn't really pick that many great guys off of waivers. He never really had that. I mean, he had Magna last year, but he was kind of but mainly we'll look at the trades. And this is what I love. We'll talk about the Brandon Hagel trade, all right? And I know he's
awful.
No, I will disagree still. He's a 90-point guy now. He's amazing. I'm super happy for Hags doing that well at the Lightning. But we have 2 pieces in Oliver Moore and Sasha Boisvert. I'm going to talk about both of them in the prospect corner because both of them had pretty good weekends. And even if they're not perfect personally as a prospect guy, I'm very excited for those 2 guys in particular. And for a team that wasn't like competing at that time, let's be real here. Hagel's game relies on speed and tenacity and yada, yada, yada. Is he going to be able to do that at 34, 35? I hope so. I hope Hagel can. I love the player, and I hope he can continue to do that into his 30s, but people become slower. Again, we talked about it last time, but Father Time is undefeated right now.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if his timeline fits the Hawks.
He didn't fit the Hawks timeline.
Exactly.
I'll give you that.
Yes, he is a younger player, but I'm pretty sure Brandon Hagel is like 28. Or maybe 26. 26. He's 26.
I got too attached.
He's not like old, but 26 when you have that's an older guy. That's someone you bring on as a veteran presence, not as a guy who grows with the team at that point. Yeah. And I'm saying even if Oliver Moore and Sasha Boisvert combined end up producing like less and are not as valuable of an asset as Brandon Hagel, which I still would debate. But if somehow they both manage to not be good enough and Brandon Hagel is that much better than those two even combined, yes, you lost the trade, but the timeline fits much better with those two players.
It's more important to get the timeline right.
Exactly.
I do agree with that.
You're doing a rebuild. You want to have the timeline. And I personally think Oliver Moore, I know a lot of people have given him hate, but we'll talk about him in the prospect corner because he is really, really good. People hate him too much.
Well, would you say Hagel was 26?
Hagel, 26, yes.
So, yeah, because, I mean, if you think about it, realistically, if you're talking about all these Hawks pieces, we're probably, 3 or 4 years away from getting all these guys in their prime?
In their prime?
Not
I don't know about their
prime, but
like getting them all in the NHL.
Getting them all in the NHL.
2, maybe 3, because Kantsarov isn't going to be here next year, but he'll be the year after that. Oliver Moore, Sam Renzel, and a couple of those guys should both be in the NHL at the end of this year. Sacha Boisvert might take a little bit longer. The biggest thing with Boisvert is his shot already NHL ready. His positioning is pretty darn good. He's a great fire of the puck, and he's the leading goal scorer for North Dakota right now, which is not a bad program, as a freshman. So that's big. But the biggest thing with Boisvert is his skating. I'll get to that again later. But
so 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years, probably.
That would make Hagel
29.
And like you said, 2 to 3 years, Hagel, 29 years old.
Comparatively to someone guys, like Oliver Moore, who's currently 20 and is going to fit the timeline of someone like Bedard, who's still only 19, much better.
Those guys wouldn't be in their prime when they get to the NHL. Hagel's going to be over the hump.
Yeah, because that's the biggest thing. People are like, oh, you need to get forwards to play with Bedard. He did. The problem is Bedard is so good that he's in the NHL before any of the forwards he was drafted with. Yeah. There is a lot of forwards that were drafted in and around when he was you got Ryan Green, you got all these different like you have Nazar who's finally paying dividends, but I'm saying
I think Davidson, I mean I agree with that. But I think you kind of saw that he tried to do quote unquote patchwork because guys with like Taylor Hall or a Donato and stuff
the Taylor Hall trade was fantastic. That was
I'm just saying in general, you saw Davidson draft all these young guys because of the timeline of Bedard, and they'll get there. But like you were saying, we need veterans, we need people to play around Bedard. Davidson did that. It's just that you can't expect them to be good.
Yeah.
Because you're surrounding Bedard with Donato, and no offense to Donato, he's doing good, but Taylor Hall, Foligno, all these people.
Ryan Donato has more even strength goals this year than a bunch of really good players. I can't remember the full list, but it was oh my god, he has more even strength goals than Austin Matthews this year or something like that. It was crazy. But yeah, so he's killing it.
He's doing a mix of that.
Ryan Donato, which by the way, KD signed, so give him some credit for that. I'm going to go back down these trades because I was telling my friends, again, people don't remember how good of his trades were. He traded DeBrincat to the Senators for one bad year there because they traded him the next year. So they traded basically for 1 year of Alex DeBrincat. They traded Kevin Korchinski and AJ Spellacy. Also Paul Ludwinski, but he looks really, really bad in the AHL right now. So, yikes. But AJ Spellacy and Kevin Korchinski.
Korchinski, though.
Exactly. That was Korchinski. We'll see if he can continue to develop. Kirby Dach for Frank Nazar. No offense, but at this moment in time, not even just for the future, but even for this moment in time, if you give me one player to take right now, I'd rather have Nazar.
Yeah.
And Nazar is much younger than Dach. So, or not much younger, but he's a couple of years younger. So I think Nazar is.
I'd rather take youth than anything.
Oh, there was also Frank Nazar and Gavin Hayes. He got both of them. I mean, Gavin Hayes is doing all right in the AHL, not amazing, but better than Ludwinski. Then remember he traded pick number 38, which ended up being Fraser Minton, who's pretty solid for the Leafs, for Peter Mrazek and Sam Renzel. because they wanted to dump that contract, and they gave us a higher pick, 28, so we could take Sam Renzel, who now looks like a top 4 stud.
And Mrazek, who's been serviceable.
Who was our good goaltender last year. He's been bad this year, but he was really good last year.
Him and Soderblom kind of switched.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, they did.
I was kind of worried about him. But
remember,
anyways.
Roman Kanserov, we're talking about him killing it in the KHL. The pick we got for that was because we took on the Nikita Zaitsev contract. We got that second-round pick for free.
Wow.
Yeah. It was literally future considerations. We got...
we haven't heard that phrase in a while.
Roman Kanserov 4. Looking at more of them, a lot of the ones that he didn't like, a lot of the things about the Hawks that he didn't like were still Stan Bowman things. This Seth Jones, that was Stan Bowman. A lot of stuff that he was trying to get out and move around is because Stan Bowman. I remember Ian Mitchell. Everyone was like, "Oh, Ian Mitchell's gonna do really good," and then he didn't do basically anything. And people were
I was kind of high on him.
Mad at KD for doing it. I'm like, dude, it's Bowman's draft picks. All the stuff that is failing is still left over from Stan Bowman. Seth Jones was the last thing, and we traded him away. We got the goaltender of the future. We have our defense of the future. We just need to surround him with another star forward, which now in this draft we should be able to get.
That's something that I understand it, but I still just find it weird that you get a new GM and they just I don't necessarily have a problem with it because I think it's good. And I think that's why you get rid of a GM and get a new one. But, the whole idea that a GM will come into a team and just be like, nope, I'm undoing everything the previous GM did. There's a reason for it because obviously that GM got fired for a reason. But,
a good reason.
I don't know. I just think that's so interesting and weird to watch. And it's in every sport. Davidson came in and he was like, all right, everything Stan Bowman just did, I'm going to undo. And it's just I don't know.
Oh, he also traded Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty for a first-round pick, which we have this year, which is Toronto's.
That's crazy.
Sam Lafferty and Jake McCabe. He retained salary on McCabe, so we were able to trade him for a first-round pick. So the main reasons why I think people dislike KD, in my opinion, the main reasons why I thought people didn't like KD was the Patrick Kane deal, which...
Yeah, that's always going to sting no matter what, though. Doesn't matter.
They didn't like... that they traded him, but they also didn't like that they didn't bring him back to mentor Bedard.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
I'll confess, I'm still one of those people that thinks he might come back for a year.
I want him to. I really do want him to. But
He should. Patrick Kane, if you're watching this.
But he's having a great time with DeBrincat right now in Detroit.
Yeah, those two are buddies.
Yeah, so I'm happy for him that he's having a good time in Detroit as well, but I do want him to be back at some point.
Radical idea.
So
Patrick Kane comes back to the Hawks for 1 year, and he gets DeBrincat to come with him.
No, that was no way. There's no way. We would trade that for zero. We'd have no capital.
We'd have nothing left.
I mean, maybe you'd trade one of your first round picks because that's the big thing. I'll bring up really quick the asset management here. Puckpedia, thank you for being the new cap
still wouldn't
friendly.
be worth it though.
But we have. Let me pull up our cap space. Yes, so we have 2 first-round picks this year, Toronto and our own. We have 2 first-round picks next year with the now Florida pick. We have 2 second-round picks this year with the Dallas and our pick, and we have 3 second-round picks next year.
Dang.
And we have our third-round pick now again this year, which is essentially a second-round pick because we're so bad. But we did win. So I don't know. It seems like it's on the up. I mean, we still have all this draft capital. We still have the best prospect pool, and that's going to lead me into our final part.
And remember, quickly before we get to that, remember we have all those draft picks in a couple of years when all these prospects get up to the NHL. We're not going to need that draft pick as much. Those draft capital. So guess what? We're probably going to just trade them for those final pieces to make a cup run.
Exactly.
So I like your thinking there. It's a good thing to point out.
Exactly. So the first prospect I'll talk about in our prospect corner is going to be Nick Lardis. Again, I know.
Hey,
I talk about him every week.
We haven't heard of that name before, have we, guys?
But he just keeps doing it. He had a 2-goal game the other on what was it? Thursday, I think. And then he had one game where he actually, for like the first time in a long time, went 3 whole periods without scoring a goal.
No, you're lying.
Yeah, he did.
That's crazy.
And then he scored the overtime game winner.
Oh, wow.
So
how about that?
He's now up to 66 goals in 58 games. No, not points. 66 goals in 58 games. And 42 assists for 108 points in 58 games. 66 goals. 66. He's currently third in the entire CHL, not just the OHL. He's second in the OHL. He's third in the entire CHL. So WHL, QMJHL, and OHL.
What the heck?
The last person to I'm thinking of Jordan Dumais did that good, and he's not doing amazing in the AHL right now. Jordan Dumais was in the Q, and no offense, the Q is not as good as the OHL and WHL. I mean, no offense, but just it's not that it's not as good. I don't want to say that, but it's a different style of.
It's just a different league.
It's a different league, and it plays just a little bit differently to the point where I feel like it's less translatable. And so and even now, the highest point getters are only 80 points. They're not at they're at 90 and not these numbers 108 points. No, Nick Lardis is third in the entire CHL right now in points. That is not anything to scoff at. I'm starting to just go full. I think he could be the next DeBrincat kind of player. Honestly, I'm tired of trying to slow my hype train down because I'm it's not that good. He keeps proving me wrong. He's 66 goals. Remember when we were talking about that he would be the first player to score 60 goals since either Alex DeBrincat? He'd be close to him. He has now.
Yep.
And he's done it in half the time. So he has 8 games left, and he's already at 66 goals. He's probably going to hit 70. I don't even remember the last time somebody hit 70 goals in the OHL.
Keep doubting him, though.
No, please.
Keep putting him, keep lowering the hype, because if you keep doing that, he's going to keep going up.
Yeah. Keep doubting him, because then when he gets the league and he's on that second line with Frank Nazar, ooh, buddy. Is that going to be gross?
There's nothing sweeter than just putting it in your haters' faces.
Yeah. So I'm excited that Nick Lardis just had to continue the hype train there. Moving on from Lardis, we'll talk about Drew Commesso. Now, I wanted to talk about him with Spencer Knight because, yes, Arvid Soderblom right now was our starter, and now with Knight assumedly being our starter, he's probably going to be the backup. Yeah. But it'll probably be a 1A, 1B situation.
He's starting in 30 minutes, by the way.
Oh.
Go Hawks.
Absolutely. But, it's hard to say.
We have a lot of goals. What do we have? We have Soderblom,
Mrazek, Knight, and
4 goalies.
On IR is Brossoit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it'll be weird. But
who stays and who goes?
I'm sure Mrazek is going to get sent down out of the ones, because Arvid Soderblom was already the starter this year. No offense to Peter, but out of guys, if someone's going to get sent down, it's going to be Peter. But I don't even know if you need to, because of this guy right here, Drew Commesso. I think, as much as I love Arvid, I think they probably deal him at some point. Not this trade deadline, but I think they do deal him at some point, because he's very good, and I think a young goaltender that can actually play solidly is worth a solid.
He'll get you a good return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you have, and that's only because I believe in Commesso that much. I don't think you should deal him soon, not this year or maybe even next year. But I'm when Commesso is ready to come up, then you deal Soderblom. But Commesso, people have been giving him a lot of slack, because both of the Blackhawks goalies this year were supposedly high goaltending prospects. Both Commesso and Guyon were supposedly in the top 15 in the NHL.
Yeah.
Both had suboptimal years this year. Guyan, I'm a lot more worried about because he's 20 years old in the NCAA and incredibly struggling. So that's more worrisome to me than Comesso, who, yes, he is struggling this year. I will admit, comparatively to other years, though, he's still at an .899 save percentage right now in the AHL. And some people are like, oh, he had an .846 in the NHL. If you watch that game, he was really good for the first 2 periods, and then after the Blackhawks defense decided to put out TJ Brody for the 40th time, then they kind of got walked and got obliterated in the third. So yes, he let in a lot, but it was not that bad of a game.
What can you even say? Like, I hate the people that like will judge those numbers. How many games has Comesso even been in the NHL?
2.
Yeah, it's only two games, people. Like,
technically, he didn't even start one, so he only has 1 loss on his record.
Give him a break. It's only 2 games in the NHL. Like, you can't be like, oh, he only had an .846 or whatever. Like, give me a break.
He hasn't been perfect, but an .899 in the AHL is still good. Which, by the way, let me look up the AHL goalie stats. But people are talking like his slump this year to an .899 is like just the end all be all. Like it's like he's worse than last year. He had like a .908 or something. He had a 906 last year in the AHL. Oh, he has a 906 last year. He has an .899 this year. I'm like, if you look at players that are there, yes, someone like Sebastian Cossa has a .913 and is doing a lot better. Someone like Dylan Garand, but those guys are a little bit older. But yes, Comesso is about the same age as Cossa. Cossa, yeah. But if you look at the people under him, it's a lot of good people as well. Mitchell Weeks, his partner, is actually lower than him. Nico Dawes, who just had a shutout in the NHL, has an .891 save percentage in the AHL. Eric Portillo, who has been doing pretty darn good as a backup now for the Kings, he has an .889 save percentage right now in the AHL.
See, y'all stop hating on him.
Jesper Wallstedt, the supposed best goalie prospect in the entire league, has an .884 save percentage this year.
Wow.
Exactly.
Don't be hating on our boy Comesso.
So, I'm not saying that Drew Comesso is going to be a amazing, all-time franchise goalie. But do I think he could be like a Jimmy Howard light? Yeah, I could see that. A serviceable enough starter.
Yeah. That's all we need.
Exactly.
That's all you need. If you get...
And you have that in
good
tandem with Spencer Knight.
Ooh, shut up.
You have the USA tandem. Both of them have played at the World Championships for USA. Or at least, yeah, because Spencer Knight was at World Juniors. Both of them, and then Comesso played at the World Championships.
If you're hating on Drew Comesso for his numbers, then I'm going to put out a challenge to you right now. And I'm going to say that I challenge you to go suit up and play however many games, and you stop 89 to 90% of the shots that you face. I would bet you can't do it, so be quiet. That's all I'm going to say about that.
All right. Well, the last 2 people I want to talk about is the 2 people from that Brandon Hagel trade, which I like talking about because he deserves to get talked about. First of all, Oliver Moore, he is going to be one of the fastest people in the league. Like, he's already one of the fastest people in college. His skating
faster than McDavid.
Utterly David. I don't know if his skating is better than McDavid's. That's kind of a high bar. But he is the best skating prospect, I think, in the NHL right now. Like, pure skating-wise, I think Oliver Moore is the best. Okay. His skating is fantastic, and he just had a really good weekend, too, for Minnesota. I think 1 goal, 2 assists, I think.
All right.
And he has 30 points in 34 games. So,
not bad.
Not amazing, but remember, Frank Nazar was only a point per game for the University of Michigan. And look at what he's done. I think Oliver Moore is a similar translatable game to Frank Nazar. Now, I don't think he's going to be as good as Nazar is. Like, Nazar seems to be like at a half a point per game already at age of 20. But I do think that he's going to be that youthful injection of speed that this team really needs. Like, speed in particular. This team lives and dies by speed. You have really good guys who can play with speed, like Reichel and Bedard, but then you also have a lot of people who don't play with as much speed, like Maroon or Foligno. Like, So I think that youthful injection is going to be really good. That's what the main thing with Boisvert is. Boisvert is his skating. Is the exact opposite to Moore. Moore has a pretty good shot and is the fastest person. Sometimes he just uses his fast when he doesn't need to. Like he's speeding and he just loses track of the play or something like that. Like it happens, but he sometimes needs to slow the game down a little bit.
That'll come.
But Boisvert is the exact opposite. He has 25 points in 32 games this year for University of North Dakota. He's second in the entire team in points, first in goals as a freshman for University of North Dakota. Freshman, he's getting like 12 minutes compared to like 20 as some of the seniors. He's like playing on as like a second. Like, and I don't know if he's like exactly what his line is, but I do remember that he's not on playing as much time on ice as some of the other forwards are. And so
he's still putting up those numbers.
Still putting up those numbers. So, and the biggest thing with Boisvert is, again, his production there. He's great. He's also gritty. He's that big guy. His dad was a professional boxer. So he can beat the crap out of people too.
Don't mess with him.
Exactly. He's a big hitter too. He looks great. The biggest thing with Boisvert is just his skating, which is I want Oliver Moore and Sasha Boisvert to like just teach each other everything. Because if they can just share their minds and like Oliver Moore can help Boisvert with skating and Boisvert can help Oliver Moore with some like the slow the game down stuff and like find people and really rip the puck. Think if those two talked together and like shared their knowledge with each other, those two would be unstoppable.
Put them into like some kind of like not time machine, but put them into a machine and just morph them together.
Or you should, I don't know, put them both on the same team and then have them be similar ages around the same time and both be in the timeline for a certain Chicago Blackhawks team. Maybe they'll teach each other. I don't know. But all I'm saying is I love the future for this team. The prospects are just fantastic. They're ripping it up. Nick Lardis is blowing it off the roof in the OHL. They're killing it in the NCAA and have good underlying numbers. Oliver Moore just won USA Gold again. All right, and he was a big part of that team. So I don't want to hear it about Oliver Moore. I am very excited. I know people that are not like that are done on Moore. I'm like, nah. That kid's gonna be amazing, and that speed is gonna be great. I cannot wait until him and Ryan Green should come over at the end of the year. He is like top 5 in Hobie Baker voting this year. Like,
really?
Yeah, he's killing it too.
Okay.
So, I mean, he's not putting up the same points as like a Jimmy Snuggerud or an Isaac Howard, but he's
holding his own.
He is definitely holding his own. Absolutely. I mean, he's for Boston U. He's making that team run, and that team has Cole Hudson, who's doing really, really good. So, I don't know, but point is, I think both of those guys are going to be big. So that's why I'm okay with the Brandon Hagel trade. Because personally, I think Oliver Moore is going to be what this team needs even more than Brandon Hagel. Because now Landon Slaggert, while not as good, kind of provides that role that Brandon Hagel had.
Yeah.
And now you have someone like Oliver Moore who's just super fast. And he plays that role of get in on the forecheck and like get the puck and prevent ice. Like that. That's the game he plays. He's really, really good at that. And that's what the Hawks need. So I'm excited about that. We got Seth Jones gone, Spencer Knight. Woo! We have our goalies of the future. We have our defense of the future because, oh my gosh, with Korchinski, Levshinov, Rinzel, and Vlasic. And that bottom pair is going to be like some juggling of Allen, Del Mastro, and Crevier because all three of them have been very good in the NHL this year.
Didn't Del Mastro just get his first NHL goal?
He did. Or Kaiser even could be on that bottom pair. Our defense is so stacked. We have that. Now our goalies are so stacked because we have all under the age of 26, Arvid Soderblom, Spencer Knight, and Drew Comesso. And that's if you forget about Guyon because of how bad he's been this year. But if you still have Guyon in like your back pocket if you absolutely need it.
Yeah.
Like you have a stacked goalie prospect pool. And by the way, they're probably going to draft one this year because they said that they were going to. That's why they didn't draft one last year. So they're probably going to draft another goalie prospect this year as well, too. So your goalie cupboard is stacked. Your defense cupboard is stacked. The main thing you need is forwards, please. I mean, and that's not counting.
They'll get there.
And that's not counting Sasha Boisvert, Oliver Moore, Nick Lardis. Like,
yeah.
I'm telling you, if they can just get that number one guy, who I think is either James Higgins or Michael Misa, they need a top 3 pick. Because if they get a top 3 pick, It's going to be either Michael Misa, James Higgins, but if you're third overall, and for some reason the top two teams take it, I can't imagine that neither of those teams take Matthew Schaefer. But if that happens, I'd take Matthew Schaefer. I think he's the next, I think I see some Quinn Hughes in him. Like, he's gross. Like, I don't think he's going to be that good, but I think, there's that.
He's got potential.
That Lane Hudson kind of guy. And you saw how good Lane Hudson's doing for Montreal this year. So, I don't know. It is what it is, but I think that's it. That wraps up your prospect corner. So, just, again, have patience. We talked about it earlier.
We're getting there.
We're, on the cusp. The end of this year, some of these guys are getting here. Next year, Oliver Moore might be full-time next year. Colton Dock's probably full-time next year. Frank Nazar is definitely full-time next year.
Well, I think we're going to get there. It'll be exciting. But as for this episode, it has come to an end. But
it has.
As a reminder, as Dylan mentioned, we are going to be splitting up the podcast.
Correct.
Starting next week. So we will have a Bison-only content, will be staying as the Sin Bin podcast, and a different podcast as Blackhawks and other things. We will get that information out as soon as we figure that out. But thank you for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on Spotify, YouTube. Share it. Do what you got to do. You know the deal. See you later.